Rum Explorers. I'm Nia, and today in the day of the life of the distiller, I have Robyn from Rum et al. Super excited to have her. Thank you so much, Robyn.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So today we're going to talk about her experimental rum line and a couple other questions that we have for her. So Robyn, tell us your story.
Oh, you want me how far back do you want me to go?
That's the whole thing, because we love rum nerding on my channel, so we'd love to hear all the things.
So yeah, I am a chemist and chemical engineer by training, but always loved whiskey. Actually, that was my first love in spirits. And being that I was a scientist, I really, really enjoyed nerding out on how it was made. And so I don't know if you started with rum and that's always been your spirit, or did you like other spirits before you liked rum?
I actually got spoiled because I'm originally from South America, so it was my first spirit that I had was ron abuelo, which is a rum from Panama,
Hmm.
and then I went to vodka, and then I circled back to rum during COVID. Yeah.
Yeah, you were like, let's bring it back here. Yeah, and I for some reason, I mean, we have more exposure to like bourbon and American whiskeys in the US. And so that's what I was exposed to and that's what I loved. And I would nerd out about the mash bills and, about where in the warehouse the barrels were stored and how that impacted the flavor and stuff. Um, and my what I understood rum to be was like the shitty rum that you try in college, and I was like, oh, I don't like rums. The thing that I hear everyone say, I don't like rum. It's way too sweet.
Yeah.
And that's what I thought. That's what I was exposed to. And so while I was finishing up my PhD, I was writing my dissertation out here in California, and I heard about this distillery, Lost Spirits, and they use rapid maturation for all of their spirits. So they were using reactors to speed up the maturation process. And I was like, oh my gosh, my degree, all my research is done using reactors. So it's like taking the best of both worlds. And while I was on my interview, Brian Davis, who was the founder of Lost Spirits, he handed me a glass of like 33-year-old Diamond Distillery rum just to like test
Oh,
my palate, which he could have handed me anything. But so
yeah.
I've gone from like what I thought rum was, right? This flavored rum, overly sweetened, a bunch of artificial flavors added into it, like really shitty, shitty stuff, to now trying like the best of the best.
Yeah.
And it completely blew my mind. And that's when I started loving rum. I realized what rum could actually be and what rum was, and all those things that I nerded out about in bourbon, right? All those variables that you could change now is tenfold in rum, right? You can vary so much more, in my opinion. And I think it is a really, really diverse spirit. So that's how I got into the rum industry.
That's awesome.
Mhm.
And then talk about what inspired you to do all the experimental stuff you're doing, because you have a very interesting, I'd say, passion project on your hands.
Mhm. Yeah, I mean, again, it's just I'm a scientist and I always want to play around with the different variables. And I love that with spirits, you get to actually taste your experiments, right? In the lab, you're
Right.
not allowed to smell or taste your experiments. But but in spirits, it's, you alter a variable and now you actually get to taste that. And I think getting to incorporate your senses, your sense of smell and taste, is just another layer of appreciating the science and art that goes into making spirits.
That's awesome. And then
Mhm.
I know you, besides doing a lot of experimental stuff, you're including experimental dunder. So today I figured I'd bring out a little Jamaican rum for the video. The Handem are LROK.
Okay. Yeah.
But do you want to talk about your first rum, which is baseline? And I
Yeah.
love that you're so transparent with everything. By the way, it's very cool. So I'm
Well,
gonna pop your label so people can see it, which is very interesting. The story behind even the labels.
yeah. So when I started Rum at All, I mean, like, the first thing I wanted to make sure I was doing was being fully transparent. So if anyone thinks I'm like throwing out any stories, romanticized stories of how I'm making my stuff, like, no, that's not the case. Any questions you want to know, I will answer. Um, because I feel like we're kind of lacking that in the rum industry, in the spirits industry in general. But again, going back to, kind of this preconceived notion that a lot of people have about rum is that it is overly sweet. It's had sugar and flavor added into it. And that's just because they don't really understand the production process and everything. So I'm hoping that with my transparency with how I do everything, it does help, kind of educate the consumer a little bit more of what actually goes into rum. But yeah, so the first rum that I released was my baseline rum, which is my baseline rum recipe. It's just molasses, water, and yeast, distiller's yeast too. It's double pot distilled and completely unaged. And to me, it's like a very straightforward, again, my baseline rum, that, yeah, the recipe that I alter now for the rest of the variable rums that come after that start with the baseline recipe.
And I love that you're progressing from the base so we can see everything from the start. The other thing that I hear a lot from people that claim to not like rum is they're like, there's no regulations and there's no rules in rum. It's like the Wild West. And it's like, no, you'd be
Mhm.
surprised how many countries have regulations, how many countries have GIs or AOCs, which is
Mhm.
very not well known across the world. So
Yeah, well, I
we'll see.
think
We're
that's
getting
because,
there.
yeah, I think that's like because it is really well regulated in other countries, but not in the US. In the US, we have rum and we have flavored rum, and that's essentially it, right? There's no real strict regulations that help dictate what goes into making a rum in the US, unfortunately, which, is like a blessing and a curse, right? Because it means
Right.
there's a lot more to play around with. But also, it does mean that there's that confusion. Whereas in the whiskey industry in the US, bourbon and everything is very, very well regulated, and well defined. I think that's where there's a lot of confusion with rum, is because it's not really well defined as much as other spirits in the US.
And then somebody had shown me once, which I was really surprised here on the TTB's website, to have rum on your label, it has to be 40% and above. But I've seen so many bottles on the shelves that have rum in it, but it's like a liqueur.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, how did they get through that? How did they finagle the labeling? I don't know, but very interesting.
Yeah.
So talk to us about this beautiful label.
It's a microscope image of the actual fermentation made, or when baseline was being made. So I took a sample from the fermentation, popped it under my microscope, and that's, of course, not an actual image. I did go and like alter the colors in Adobe Illustrator just to make it more fun. But yeah, those are like the kind of bubble looking shapes. Those are all yeast cells.
Very, very cool.
Yeah, when I showed my sister, who's not a science-minded person, when I showed her this label, she was like, "I don't know, it kind of looks like fungus." And I was like, "Yeah, yeast is a
Well, it
fungus." So
technically
yeah.
is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I was like, "Great, that's exactly what it should look like."
Okay, so this one is unaged, and now let's move to variable.
Mhm.
What's the difference between variable and baseline?
So variable is where now I take the baseline recipe and I alter one variable at a time. So variable dunderclap, the dunderclap expression, has dunder added into the fermentation in place of some water, and that's it. Everything else is kept as consistent as possible from baseline.
So it's the same molasses, the same
Hmm.
yeast.
Hmm. Yep.
And then as far as your fermentation, do you always use plastic totes?
I do. Yeah, that's just because that's what's readily available. Um, another thing with like when I was starting my brand and working on making these rums, I just kind of wanted to show what was possible with readily available ingredients and stills, right? So
Right.
totes are readily available. So you will find that a lot of craft distilleries, especially small craft distilleries, will ferment in totes because that's what they have. It's readily available. They're very cheap and they're easy to use, easy to clean. So yeah.
That's good to know.
Hmm.
And then for those people that don't know what dunder is, could you explain what dunder is?
Yeah, dunder is the liquid that's left in the still after the first distillation. So it's essentially the first with a lot of, well, essentially all of the alcohol removed from it, some flavor and everything, but it's got minerals left in it, dead yeast cells left in it. It's just like this dark liquid that pretty much just looks the same as the wash that goes into it.
And you're adding this during fermentation, but
Mhm.
my understanding is that there's people that even add dunder after distillation.
After distillation, like
Yeah.
into the white rum. I
Or
don't
like
I don't
before.
it
I thought
so
Hamden did that too. Like they added some, maybe I'm confused with their, because they have, it's very interesting. They had dunder as well as these bricks that were made from dunder, but they were like white bricks on the side. And they said that sometimes they'll add that after they distill. I don't know. I'll have to do some research and get back to you.
oh,
But I
okay.
have some pictures of it.
Yeah, I wonder if they're white bricks, that might be part of their cousin's process and it might go into like the high wines and low wines, which is also known as the late and early tails, in
Yeah.
their retorts for
Oh, that makes
distillation.
sense. Yeah, that
Yeah,
makes sense. That
yeah, yeah.
sounds that sounds more accurate than Dunder.
Yes, that's
Okay.
that's completely different from Dunder, but it is like they are they're getting that from what's left in the retorts after distillation. They're then adding in some salts to kind of crash out some of those heavier acids and esters, larger acids and esters, and then cooking that down until it forms like a solid, and then they can mix that back in to the high wines and low wines, and that just provides an extra concentration boost of those acids and esters that were left in the retorts. But yeah, it's not what's left in the actual still, so it's not
Okay.
the dunder that's left in there. I think there's a lot of terms in rum that get a little bit confusing.
Yeah,
Like,
for sure.
I think a lot of people will use dunder and muck interchangeably when they are different things. And then we have high wines and low wines, which, depending on who you're talking to, are different things. And so, yeah. there's a lot of different terms that I feel like need to be defined while you talk about them. So when I say like high wines and low wines, I'll tell you exactly what I mean versus just assuming that you know which high wines and low wines I'm talking about, if that makes
That's
sense.
great. Yeah, because definitely knowledge is power. So the more
Mm-hmm.
we know, the more we know what we like to in rum and what to buy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I
Rum,
think when you
sorry, go ahead.
when you tasted these, so I watched the video when you tasted these, and I thought it was
Yeah.
really interesting that you said like, oh, I was expecting for variable dunderclap, you were expecting a little bit more of that Jamaican funk, right? Because I
Yeah.
added the dunder. And that was one thing that like I knew consumers were going to say, because you say dunder and people think, oh, it's going to be super funky like it is in Jamaica, right? The super
Hmm.
high ester rums. And I hope that this highlighted that that's not necessarily the case, because there's a lot more that goes into actually making those rums and making them super high ester rums, that extends way beyond just using dunder. Dunder is one aspect of it. They're also using cane acid, they're using muck, they're using spontaneous fermentation. They are also using the Cousins process, which really, really super concentrates those esters during distillation. And it's all this stuff that, it's a lot to understand. So people tend to simplify it with like, oh, well, if you add dunder, then that's going to add a lot of funkiness to it. But I think it just adds like a little layer of complexity from baseline to variable dunder clap.
That's awesome. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. But it was definitely quite flavorful, so I could see the impact from the dunder anyway.
Mm-hmm.
Rough Spirits in the chat is saying, two of my three favorite rum ladies here. Thanks, Marshall. We appreciate it. Matthew Smith is also saying, oh, heck yeah, we're talking craft. Matthew, what did you expect? We have Robyn, who's a chemical engineer. She knows her stuff, so we got to ask all the questions. So if you have questions, feel free to put them in the comments, and I'll go ahead and ask
Yeah.
Robyn. And then for the label for this one, it's a little bit more colorful. So same thing. It's the way it looks underneath the microscope. But is there a reason why you added the yellow in there?
Just a change of color. Yeah, just a change of color. But you can see in this one, right? Like there are more specks and lines. I don't know if anyone else noticed this, right? There's more like specks and lines throughout the
Yeah, for
image.
sure.
And instead of just like, right, these yeast cells, these bubbles, and those are the bacteria that are in the fermentation. So adding in the dunder also brought a little bit of bacteria into the fermentation, which is pretty cool, I think.
It is. And now let's move on to the last one, which is your second expression, which is the variable, but this one you call tailspin.
Yep, this one a little bit more complicated to explain, hence why it's called tailspin. But this has tails added in to the second and third distillations. So instead of being double pot distilled, like both baseline and variable dunderclap were, tailspin now has it's triple distilled and has tails added into the second and third distillation, along with dunder added into those distillations as well. So again, we're going for adding a little bit more complexity and flavor to the rum, with again just altering one variable from dunderclap. So same thing as dunderclap. It has molasses, water, dunder, and yeast in the fermentation. And then this one's triple distilled. And the reason I use dunder instead of just using the tails is that I only have a pot still, and I don't have any doublers or retorts or anything attached to that pot still. Hopefully one day. But it's like, it's pretty dangerous to distill if distill a wash that is higher than 40% ABV. And
Okay.
once you go through the first distillation, you can hit somewhere around like, you can get it down to about 30% ABV. But once you're adding in the tails, that can kind of bring that up a little bit. And I needed to bring the ABV down below 40%. And so in order to dilute it down, I added in dunder, and I did the same for the third distillation. And instead of, I could have added water, but I went with adding dunder because I wanted to give just another opportunity to add more flavor. So this was my interpretation of essentially a double retort pot still. But again, my interpretation, and it's not a direct interpretation of it, but I wanted to show again what you're capable of doing using just molasses, water, and yeast, and a pretty standard pot still.
And it's amazing. I love that you stay consistent and you only adjust one thing, so you can truly compare how it evolves as you change things on the recipe. And then I did see, and correct me if I'm wrong, but did you say that you add nutrients? What is the purpose of adding the nutrients?
Yeah, so adding nutrients during fermentation just ensures that you have a healthy fermentation and that the yeast aren't going to stall out and your fermentation's not going to, get stuck before it's complete. So it's just providing the yeast with the proper nutrients that they need for fermentation.
Okay, to just keep producing the alcohol, I imagine.
Yep.
Okay. Awesome. And then on your notes, you did talk about, you said like, I can't remember if it was the nose or the taste. It's like noodly or pasta water, which I've never heard. And I love when people come up with new notes. Can you elaborate? What did you mean? Because I find that very interesting.
That is when I'm tasting for cuts, right? It's every distiller will have their own indicators for like what the heads taste like, what the hearts taste like, what the tails taste like. And for me, when I start getting into the tails, like deep into the tails, it's almost like it's been diluted with, it's like the rum has now been diluted with like pasta water and noodle water. that's
Okay.
that's it. That's what my brain has made that's the connection that my brain has made is it's like noodle water for me. So yeah, every distiller will have different ways of identifying when they're going to make cuts. So.
And I was super impressed that typically the tails, most people will discard, but even when you were calling it the tails, you didn't say these are the nuts. You just said these are the maybe nuts. I was like, wow. So even her tails are pretty good because she doesn't call them the nuts. They're maybe nuts.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you added them to this expression as well.
Well, they are still super flavorful and they have a ton of ethanol in them still. So if you're also trying to be, maximize as much alcohol you can get out of your fermentations, like it makes a lot of sense to try and recycle your tails back in and everything. So yeah.
Especially when you're doing craft spirits, right? You got to be as efficient as possible with everything.
Yeah, I mean, even the larger distilleries, it definitely would benefit them too, right? If they're not, I know even large distilleries that have continuous stills, they're cycling those cuts right back into the distillation. So they're trying to, again, maximize as much ethanol as they can as possible. So it's not only, I mean, for me, it's not only maximizing as much ethanol, but also like giving those flavors that are in that, those cuts another chance to make it into the spirit.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And then you also talked about the taxes in California. Could you elaborate a little bit? Is it regarding the proof or the spirits in general?
So yes and yes. It's taxes, excise taxes are different in every state. I'd say California is, this is going to shock a lot of people. Our excise taxes for at least distillers is not that bad compared to other states. But if you have a spirit that is above 50% ABV, you're now going to pay $6.60 per gallon, and it's per wine gallon, which again is silly because like federal taxes are done based on proof gallons, so they essentially like standardize based on the ABV, or standardize based on alcohol. But this is just based on wine gallon, which means the actual volume that you have. But if it's $6.60 if it's above 50% ABV or above. If it's 50% or 49% ABV and below, it's $3.30 per gallon. So it is cheaper to have, I shouldn't say cheaper, but yeah, anyways, it ends up being, you're paying less taxes on lower proof spirits than higher proof spirits.
Okay, that's awesome. We have John from Just Rum chiming in. He said, hey, Nia. Hello, Robyn. Marshall also said that great job on Tailspin because it's his favorite of the three. And he's also excited that you're going to do the Queen Share. And he is super excited about that one.
I'm excited for everyone to taste the Queen Share too. I don't know, Marshall, who told you about the Queen Share?
I think you talked about it in one of your videos.
Did I? I think I just talked about it on Patreon.
Oh, okay. So
I don't know if there's buzz.
Because I remember hearing it on either a video or your Patreon.
Oh, I wonder.
I wonder. Too, so he heard about that.
I didn't know if he heard it from somewhere else, but you heard it from John and Lori. Yeah. Okay. So John and Lori of Raising Glasses, they're going to be bottling the Queen Share distillation that I just did, which is really exciting. I'm very excited for everyone to try it because I think it's delicious. So.
Can you talk about also why you call it a Queen Share, or why do distillers call those expressions Queen Share?
I do not know where the term came from, but my guess is that it's just because they redistilled the heads and tails, they gave it to the queen. I don't know. I'm sure there's some myth out there about how, when you redistill the heads and the tails, it gives you a much better spirit that's fit for the queen. I'm sure there's some story out there about that.
I'm sure.
I don't know why exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I was always curious because I do see a lot of distillers releasing stuff that's called Queen Share. And I was like, okay, so there has to be a method behind this name, either the way they're fermenting or distilling.
It is in the distillation. I think, again, it's open to interpretation. Some distilleries will just redistill their tails. I redistilled both the heads and the tails because there was a lot of wonderful flavors in the heads as well, as in the tails. So yeah, no, you're allowed to talk about it, Marshall. Don't worry.
You're punished. You're exiled from the group, Marshall.
No, totally allowed to talk about it. There's no secrets here. I just want to make sure that John and Lori are excited to talk about it too. But yeah, so each distillery or each distiller will have their own kind of version of the Queen Share. But yeah, again, it's like giving those cuts a second chance to make a delicious spirit. And I think it does. It makes I think my Queen Share is pretty tasty, but you guys will be the judge of it when it comes out.
Now, speaking of Raising Glasses, can you talk about the changes that just happened so everybody's aware? Because I'm super excited for you. When we first interacted, it was only available in California, but it is officially now available in 42 states. Or soon to be in 42 states?
Soon to be. Yeah, which is exciting. Yeah, so I'm moving from direct to consumer shipping, which, limits who we can sell to at the distillery. Any consumer who is in California. We can't sell direct to bars and restaurants either. So it's just consumers in California with our Type 74 craft distiller's license. So we kind of had a cutoff of like, once May starts, let's move the rest of the bottles into distribution. So I have Ryan Gilberti, who owns Superlative Spirits out here in California. We will be, bopping around the next few weeks trying to get into bars and restaurants and liquor stores here. And then Raising Glasses is also going to take a portion, and through their online liquor store, they're able to ship to 41 or 42 states, which is really exciting because that means that consumers throughout the country will be able to get my rums when they haven't been. The question I get most is, can you ship outside of California?
You're
It's
like,
like, no,
now,
not yet.
yeah.
Now, yes. Yeah. So I'll try to keep everything updated on my website of where things end up, but that will also be over on Raising Glasses website and everything. So yeah.
And it's really cool because Raising Glasses does a lot of stuff that we hadn't seen before. Just their Thai rums, I tried a couple, and those were amazing. So it's really cool that you're partnering with them because they have very unique stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
you fit right in. Are you gonna have to change your labels at all, or bottles, or anything like that?
They'll be doing like their own label, so it will be one of their cool labels. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, because
Mm-hmm.
they do a lot of homages to like some interesting characters on the bottles, which is fun too.
Yeah. Yeah. Every email that we talk about it, we go back and forth and the name changes every single time. So
With
it'll be,
everybody's input, I'm sure.
yeah. So it'll hopefully have like a cool name and label. I mean, I think their labels are so fun. So
They are. They
mm.
are. And then do you think splitting your rums, because I know Moira right now, you have to split the runs. Do you think that changes the flavors of the different runs?
You
Or do
mean
they
like
keep everything
when I do the first distillation, how I have to
Yeah,
split it?
split it. Mhm.
I don't think so. But there's no real way of me being able to kind of A/B test that. And it is just
Okay.
the first distillation that ends up getting split up. So, I'm pulling off uh, as much distillate as I can from the first distillation, like the stripping run, right? So I think I'm getting a lot of ethanol and flavor and aroma compounds there. So once it's all blended all together, I don't think there would be a huge difference if I were to do it in just one run, unless there's some crazy significant reactions happening during those few days in the
Okay.
fermentation. I don't think that that's the case, though.
Okay. That's good to know. I was really interested in knowing that because you have to split the runs.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if anybody has any questions. Again, feel free to put it down in the comments and we'll ask Robyn right now live. Marshall is asking if John is going to use a Native American mythical creature for your bottle.
I'm
TBD, right?
Yeah, no idea. No idea. I'm sure open to suggestions. So
That'll be cool. Robyn as
yeah.
a superhero or something like that. That'd be so funny. And then, what is your vision for the future of Roman Al? You're already progressing so fast, but
Mhm.
I know you and I kind of rum nerded a little bit back scenes. I was like, oh, I can't wait for you to age some of this stuff. Obviously, besides the aging and now expanding nationwide, what else would you love to see your brand evolve into?
Well, I mean, the hope is, and I'm working on it, is finding my own space and starting my own distillery so that people can actually come visit with a tasting room, come through on tours, and really get to, enjoy the distillery. I like to go visit distilleries and get to talk to the distiller and really like see everything, smell everything, and that's what I love sharing with consumers as well. And in the current space that I'm in at Dead of Night, we just don't have the space for scale up at all, because Aaron, who owns Dead of Night, is doing his own stuff, right?
Right.
And we're currently not able to actually bring consumers in to the distillery, although like a few people who have visited have definitely come by and seen the distillery and everything. But I would like to have that, an actual like tour of the distillery would be great. So that's what I'm working on right now. So finding the space is step one, and that is very challenging so far.
Oh, I can imagine a huge undertaking. And you're thinking you're gonna stay in California?
Hmm. Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
Yep. I'll be in the LA area.
that's good to know.
Hmm. Yep. I know. So if anyone out there who's watching is in commercial real estate out in LA, reach out to me. I'm in the
Yeah,
market
because
for a space. Yeah.
she needs help. Marshall is saying that it just hit him. He wants to do Skinwalker's Queen Share. That'd be a good name for a future Queen Share, I guess, because they do some funny mythical creatures.
They do. They do.
Well, Robyn, I so appreciate you being on my channel and always being so transparent and approachable. I
Yeah.
think it's great to hear the process of people's passion projects, especially when you're on the distilling side. I'm super impressed with what you're disclosing and how transparent you are. So super excited to see what comes from your expansion, because we're now going to see you nationwide and to have all the people try your rum. Is there anything that you would like people to keep in mind when they do try your rum?
I don't think so, because I think by the time people have heard of my rum, they'll already, I feel like we're still in the my market is still kind of rum nerds, right? That's still, those are the people who have heard about my rum, are interested in trying it. So I don't think they have to keep much in mind. It has been really fun though. I've done like a tasting at an art show. I was one of the featured artists. And so people came in and got to try a couple of my rums. I tasted them on Baseline and Variable Dunderclap. Um, and it is really fun when you get to see kind of consumers who, again, think that they don't like rums, come in, taste the rums, and realize that it doesn't match what they assume rum to be in their mind. So that is really fun. So I think if you are able to grab my rums, definitely like share them with people. Share them with people who say that they're not fans of rum, or they're not fans of unaged spirits or anything like that. I think just sharing it with people so that they get exposure to what rum actually can be, is what's most important.
So for the bar scene, what do you think you're gonna open? Like, which bottle do you think you're gonna open bartenders to?
Oh, good
Or
question. Good question. I was gonna bring. I feel like my default is bringing around the 49% ABV rums, because otherwise the 75% I feel like is just a lot for people to wrap their heads around and their palates around. So yeah, I was planning on just bringing all of them to just, yeah. I don't know. Do you have any suggestions of what you think bartenders would be more excited to try or more interested in?
I think baseline would potentially work for all kinds of cocktails, but
Mhm.
they lately bartenders are really looking for more flavor forward spirits. So I think the variable thunderclap would do amazing,
Mhm.
even if you just sipped it or just, I don't know, with very simple ingredients, it could pull through. So
Mhm.
it'll be interesting to see what everybody gravitates. But I do enjoy those higher proof ones. They were so smooth. That was so impressive.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
also
smooth.
enjoy the 75%, which is why that I bottled some at 75%. But yeah, I feel like for most people it's the 49% that I'm gonna pour for them. So instead of the 75.
And do you think you'll be traveling to talk? Because I love that you're the second chemical engineer that I meet, and you guys explain things so well and make it so understandable. I visited Steve from Loaded Cannon here in it's like near the Orlando like West area, and he's also a chemical engineer. When they went and visited his distillery, the way he explained everything, like, I don't know, sometimes people, or at least I thought, scientists and chemists would explain things way too complicated for me. But every single time, when just looking at your videos and just meeting Steve as well, I was like, oh my God, I absolutely love this, because I can ask a ton of questions and get to learn a lot of stuff that I don't know about and understand. So it's very,
Yeah.
very cool.
Not every scientist and engineer is good at explaining stuff, though. I will say, I've met a lot of them that are really not good at it unless you have a specific degree. So yeah, I think that's more so I gave a lot of distillery tours when I worked at Lost Spirits, and it was all through the production facility and through my lab. And so I had a lot of practice of explaining really technical stuff to people who are like, I'm just here to get drunk, lady. Like, you know,
Yeah,
I
I
just
forgot
came
about those
through.
people.
Yeah. I just came through here because I'm here to drink. And so, you know, you're trying to make it accessible for everyone who's there, whether they are a rum nerd, whether they're a spirits nerd, whether they're an engineer or a scientist, or whether there's someone who is there just to like completely escape and do, you know, just a fun activity. I think it's important to be able to like actually, yeah, communicate that with everyone and kind of meet everyone where they're at. So there's no reason to explain anything over anyone's head. So yeah.
That's great.
But I will be at the end of the month, I will be pouring my rums at the Rum Curious Summit out here in Long Beach. That's on Memorial Day. Are you going to any of the like rum fests or any rum events?
So this year we're kind of at a standstill with travel and everything, because we just finished our house and we're in
Okay.
that huge project. I have to find somebody. So we decided to do a speakeasy pirate bar inside my house. So we're in the middle of this huge project, which is that. So
That's really exciting.
it's very exciting, but it's kind of sad because I'm probably gonna miss a lot of stuff that I don't want to miss. But no, maybe if you, I think I might go to some of the Miami, but I don't think I'll make it
Mhm.
out to anything on the West Coast.
Yeah. I am also planning on doing New York Rum Fest and
Oh, cool.
Boston.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. And Boston Rum Week is in September, I believe. I'll go out for that as well. I have family on the East Coast, and so it's like my excuse to do like, oh, okay, I'll visit
No.
family and I'll also get some work done while I'm out here. But yeah, I'll also be at like Rumfest. They do a little pop up in LA the weekend before, or no, it's a few days before San Francisco Rumfest, which I'll probably go up for again. But yeah, so
Oh
there
my
will
God,
be a
and you'll
little
get
bit of
so much
traveling.
exposure. You'll get
Hmm.
so much exposure from the festivals, because it's surprising how many people go that are not even like
Hmm.
rum fans. They just go to check out stuff. So
Hmm.
that'll be great for you too.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They're a lot of fun.
Well, okay, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate Robyn. We'll definitely have her back for some other rum nerding sessions when we have questions and deep dives, because I do want to get back to Cane to Cup, which is my rum nerding and deep diving on specific subjects throughout the history of man. So we'll definitely have you back. So
Great.
I'm really excited to keep in touch. I will put all her information down below. She does have a Patreon where she discloses a lot more interesting things than just her regular videos, but definitely check out. She has a YouTube channel, Rametal, Instagram. She's on there as well. Follow her on all her social media. She's a wealth of knowledge, and excited to keep in touch with you.
Thanks so much. This was great.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I look forward to the next rum. Cheers.